Welcome back for the next presentation. I'm very happy and proud to present Nzinga Banks. She is a graduate of William Patterson, originally from New Jersey, a wonderful saxophone player and composer. And she has asked Bill Pierce, the great Bill Pierce, please, everybody welcome Bill, to be in our panel. And our advisor for the whole year was Carl Riley. Please clap for Carl. Thank you so much. And everybody welcome Nzinga Banks. Thank you so much.
How's everyone doing? Good. Beautiful faces. Thank you for being here. So let me start. So the name of my project is Contra versus Jazz with the Intersectionality of Race and Politics. And again, my name is Nzinga Banks. And I'd like to start with what are contrafacts? So a contrafact is where a new melody is, thank you, can you guys hear me? Yeah. Cool. So a contrafact is where a new melody is placed over a harmonic structure. While contrafacts have existed for a long time, they came into prominence during the 1940s with jazz. So they were a way for jazz musicians to evade publisher fees and copyright infringement laws. And they allowed musicians to also record songs that could exploit the adoration, idolization, and universality of jazz standards. So what's interesting is that Coltrane was harmonically exploring and innovating for a period through contrafacts. You have tunes like Satellite, which is a contrafact of How High the Moon, 26-2, which is a complicated contrafact of Confirmation, and Fifth House in his later albums, which is a contrafact of Hot House. And the same goes for Charlie Parker with Ornithology and Scrapple from the Apple, and Thelonious Monk and Bud Powell. They all had their series of contrafacts. So it's safe to say that a number of artists use contrafacts to reach some sort of elevation in their music. So I didn't just want these tunes to be provocatively named. I really wanted them to have gravity to them. So I had several components that I came up with. One of them was being educational to me. Sorry, I'm moving away from the mic. So my understanding of these standards before I made contrafacts was very minimal, and this project forced me to learn the song history, the meaning, and chord changes on a deeper level. And while I always loved standards, I had no cultural relation to their lyrical meaning. Hence, I always had a certain detachment. Looking back in history, I saw that these great jazz musicians, as black people, were faced with the same problem that I was faced with. And it's safe to assume that their contrafacts were not just as a result of dodging copyright fees, but to make it a more personable, relatable, and exciting thing to them. After playing the contrafacts continuously in less than a week, I understood them deeper than playing them for years. The other thing I can hope is that this project can serve as an inspiration to young artists to always make what they're doing relevant to now or honoring what was before, whether it's political, racial, or just something they feel adamant about. That is what the jazz greats were essentially doing, and that is what my whole jazz mantra, jazz aesthetic is. So my contrafacts, you could say, serve as a harsh duality, to the jazz standard. Because standards were originally Tin Pan Alley tunes, they were Broadway show tunes and Hollywood tunes, and they talk of love, love gained, love lost, love cherished, and a desired state of being where heartbreak is the worst that can befall you, and people are usually gleeful and barely intricate. And for everyone, this was supposed to be the ideal. But these standards were composed from a little bit before the 1920s to the mid-1970s. And that was a time that for black people was the opposite of a utopia and riddled with segregation and racism. So the decision to create this duality I thought was very important. So finally, I'm going to play There Will Never Be Another Obama, a contrafact of There Will Never Be Another You.
Merits. It has been the honor of my life to serve you. I won't stop. If I'm not ready, how is it that you think I should be such a great vice president? Do you understand that? The memories of humiliation and doubt and fear have not gone away, nor is the anger and the bitterness of those years. Real social change in this country so often has happened because ordinary people are willing in a non-violent fashion to make choices. You know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon.
So I really wanted to allude to Obama as much as possible, which is why you hear the voice excerpts throughout. Those were his funniest and more serious moments intertwined. And that was really inspired by Danilo Perez with his whole idea of mirroring the voice. So I really wanted to not exactly mirror, but mirror in sentiment the voice with the solo. So also in the beginning and also in the end, you hear this beat, which is actually a Kenyan traditional beat, which is, of course, alluding to his being half Kenyan. So this contrafact is a comical statement, but also a bittersweet statement, obviously, because you know there'll never be another president like him, and it's sort of an extinction of lyrically of there'll never be another you. There will be other lips I may kiss. There will be other experiences, and there will be other things that occur, but ultimately there will never be that one unique person, and that same sentiment applies to Barack Obama. So that was the first contrafact, and now I'm going to play All the Things Emmett Till Could Have Been, a contrafact of All the Things You Are. Oh, sorry. Sorry, this isn't All the Things You Are. This is Harriet Tubman's Feet, which is a contrafactor footprints. My bad. So, in the melody and improvisation, I really wanted to embody the courage and fierceness that was Harriet Tubman. Reading about her, she was a woman that, while still enslaved, conducted over 19 trips and guided 300 slaves to freedom. And she was a woman that liberated more than 700 slaves during a raid during the Civil War. And on top of that, later in her life, she had brain surgery but chose not to have anesthesia, but rather bite down on a bullet, as soldiers would do during the war. So she was a very strong woman, so I really tried to embody that. And while embodying Harriet Tubman, I also wanted to honor the dynamic musician that is Wayne Shorter. And I know what you're thinking. You have two different individuals, but two dynamic Black individuals at that. So I definitely strive to have some element of zero gravity. It also, for me, Harriet Tubman's Feet has double meaning in that it signifies for me the power of ancestral veneration, veneration for all the great jazz musicians before me, and that I'm walking in their footsteps, and their impact has left historical footprints. So that's what that's alluding to. So the last song I'm going to play for you is All the Things Emmett Till Could Have Been. So that was thank you. That was the intro to All the Things Emmett Till Could Have Been. And my mindset was to portray the raw emotion that came with his death, but it was also to characterize 12-year-old Emmett Till. Reading about him, particularly accounts by his family, he was characterized as fun-loving, mischievous, a joker, and having no sense of danger. And he was characterized by his mom as nothing fazed him. So also, really, I had this conception in my mind that he, as it was accounted for, he, whistled at a white woman. And I had perceived that as just being an excuse, but upon actually reading about it, that was something he did do. but it was something that I perceived as a characteristic of this young boy that had so much energy, had so much daring in him that in accounts, I was reading that this encounter was more so just a boy being a boy. So I really wanted to portray what he could have been and just the persona of a black life that is taken away without even having the possibility of being anything. So again, the song is a double meaning in that it's stating all the things Trayvon Martin could have been, Sandra Bland could have been if they wouldn't have been murdered. So before I had talked about the harsh duality to the jazz standard. So all the things you are lyrically is someone professing their love for another, of how you are the April breeze, you are the light that, that finds the star. So you're the promised kiss, you're the angel glow. So really for the lyrics, I wanted to really embody them through sort of, again, an extension of what that could have been. So I just wanted to thank the musicians that were on this project, because they did a phenomenal job of really interpreting my songs and really advise me and just put so much strength into the music. So we have PJ Anderson on trombone. He's here. We have Leslie Mock on drums. EJ Wang on piano. And two bass players on this. For the three excerpts I played, I believe it was Young Che Zhuang on bass. And I don't know if Chase Morin is here, but he was the producer / musical advisor. So in ending, I just really wanted to give thanks to a lot of people because I definitely wouldn't have made it without them. And at first I wanted to thank my advisor, Cole Riley, for continuing to push me in our advising sessions, because he would always stress for me to enjoy the process more and made me realize that this project is only really a small fraction of what I have eventually planned for it to be. So I had come into this project thinking that, okay, I'm gonna get this done and that done. And really doing it, I realized that there's so much more I need to do and learn. And I guess through all this, through recording, through learning the songs, it was just a learning experience on top of learning experience. So I also wanted to thank my teacher, Bill Pierce, for awakening deeper urgency in me, and George Garzone for introducing me to his triadic and chromatic approach. And I wanted to thank all my instructors throughout my year here, from Marco Pingatoro to Jerry Leak, who awakened in me the urgency to learn from the business side and the pedagogical side and the universal aspect of music. And I also wanted to thank Daniel Jacob Babai for helping me mix and edit all my songs. So, you know, the various experiences that I had, my confidence has grown so much. And, you know, it still has room to grow. But, I mean, from when I started, I was very nervous, very scared, and very daunted. But I credit learning, growing in my confidence and coming to a certain level musically to Danilo Perez with his fear training and just a constant demand that I throw myself into the unknown. And because of his imparting his wisdom, I have grown so much. And I really would hope that I can just enjoy the journey more and just be a part of the process. So, thank you.
Very good. Congratulations, Nzinga.
Yeah.
Wonderful presentation. We would like to have any comments, remarks?
Thank you, Nzinga. I wrote down a couple of things here. I wrote down, you're a messenger. You're brave, You're unique. You have your own voice, an incredible, strong, beautiful sound through your saxophone, and you're a role model for all of us. The music is really powerful. Your message is powerful, and it's much needed. Please keep it going.
Thank you.
And spread your message and your inspiration to the next, or any generation for that matter. But obviously, if you can do this in this kind of presentation in the schools, it will be fantastic. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I just had just something just popped in my head when you started this, and was just maybe as a consideration of the whole, this was about contrafacts, and I was thinking about, the whole African-American experience in America is a contrafact, and something to look at maybe for a future sort of a broader perspective on what you're already doing. It was great, and thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a beautiful point. Nzinga, congratulations. I think I have a question, but I'm going to lead up to that question. I'm just looking at the different elements of your work. There's research, there's arrangement, there's word painting. There's several literary devices in the title. There's a provocation to your work. There's a didactic, instructional element. All these different things. And there's poetry. I know that you have been working on texts that accompany each piece. I might ask you to talk a little bit about that process. And the big question is, where do you go from now with this concept, which I think is very strong, very personal? It's there are other people who have done similar things, but not quite in this way that I know of. So I'm wondering if you could just speak on those things.
Okay, well, answering your question about the lyrics. So with the contrafacts, just as the standards have lyrics, I wanted the contrafacts to have lyrics. And that was an arduous task because while I was a poet before I was a musician, it was still hard to, have the lyrics be as great as the standard lyrics, because when you listen to the lyrics of the standards, they have such a strong vibe to them. Despite that, as I said before, the relatability was not there for me. I still recognize them as being defining lyrics that you can't get out of your head. So I was trying to do the same thing with the lyrics, and I found that I just needed to, after a long number of rewrites, I needed to settle on lyrics that I thought best encapsulated these songs. So I came up with the lyrics, and I found that it would help because the approach that I initially had was to have them rhythmically go with the song. And I found through your help and having my mom also help me that they were stagnant in that aspect. So I had to take it more into the choreo poem / rap avenue to have more legroom. So I actually have one of the lyrics. If you want me to, okay.
That'd be great.
So I chose to basically read the lyrics like, again, I was reciting something, but to always keep in mind the pulse. So I found that this challenged me to have a sort of hip-hop rhythm Young heart void of spite, mischievous spirit, eyes so bright, Tallahatchie, no face, no eyes. She recognized, and to think of all the things that Emmett could have been, Trayvon Martin Bland, Hamilton, young heart void of spite, mischievous spirit, eyes so bright, short life, long strife. That's how it was. Emmett Lewis Till. Emmett Lewis Till. And answering your other question about how I plan to extend this, this definitely is something I would like to use for individual instruction as well as group instruction, to challenge my students to really, if they're not finding that relation, to compose contrafacts. And I would also hope that when I present this to people, that this can also be something that introduces non-jazz people to jazz and sparks an interest. So this is something that I definitely want to premiere and present to people to awaken minds and get people provocatively thinking.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Great.
Thank you.
I wanted to comment on a couple of things. What you said about building your confidence over the year, we've definitely witnessed that, so congratulations on that as well, because you seem almost like a different person with confidence, so that's beautiful. And you just said you were a poet before you were a musician. So I would just encourage you to say you are a poet,
Yeah.
and you are a musician without it being in the past tense. And I was not, really aware of the poetry aspect of your artistry, and just I think it's all one thing, so keep developing both of those. And I just wanted to also thank you for bringing the emotion to your presentation, especially with the Emmett Till piece, because that's, the Emmett Till situation is something that has always plagued me since I saw the picture of him in a casket when I was a kid, and that image keeps coming back in my brain over the years. And especially recently, I saw the casket at I don't know how many people have been to the new African American Museum in DC, but they have the actual casket there, and going there, I just wept. And so for you to bring that kind of emotion, it really transferred in your intro to that song. So thanks for being so emotional about it, because that's a part of jazz that sometimes can be forgotten. And it's a very important part to remember and to continue. So thank you.
And Nzinga, congratulations. I was blown away with the heartfelt, emotional aspect of what, you're really deep into. Incredible relevant right now. This topic that you are touching upon is so crucial, and I encourage you to keep this as the motor of your life, the engine, because you can actually make a huge contribution by bringing all this under the concept of contrafact. And I love what Billy said about the whole Afro-American experience is being a contrafact. And also, I will encourage you to use the term was started in the 16, actually. Classical musicians were using this. So a question, I don't know the answer, but a question that could be posed, like John Cage used it with Eric Satie piece, the same idea of contrafact. But this is a term that never really got up in the Western music, conservatory type of way. So it would be a nice research or experiment towards your future and see why this hasn't really catch on, which should be, actually. But congratulations, it's a fantastic, another consideration I would say, an advice would be, I would have personally liked to see some notation, music notation, and maybe the points he was making about recording yourself with the poem and then doing the pare down. That would have probably been, that's just an advice, but thank you very much. I've seen incredible growth in your artistry.
Again, congratulations on my behalf. I don't want to repeat what they say, but very, very strong presentation, very emotional. I also wasn't aware until last week that you were a poet, and a very good one. We will enjoy one of your poems in PJ presentation later on, where you also narrate the poem, and I was completely blown away by it. So my recommendation is you definitely keep on doing this and be very proud of it. This concept of really creating a thematic, so strong thematic around the contrafact is fascinating. And my question to you, since you choose to present 3 songs, can you talk a little bit about the one that you did not present?
Okay, well...
and a little bit of the scope of your overall recording as a final project.
Okay. Well, coming back to my memory, one of the other contrafacts that I composed was a contrafact of How High the Moon, entitled How High. And that was... I was trying to have a... I was thinking of like putting these on my SoundCloud so that people can listen back to these, but once you listen to that, it's a sort of 70s vibe slash alluding to Earth, Wind, and Fire and New Birth, and just trying to have that whole 70s era time because, again, with the whole duality, I wanted to elaborate on Black people having to resort to getting high or feeling that to cope with racism and post-traumatic slave syndrome and so forth, that the only, I guess, not decision, but more so coping mechanism is getting high or putting yourself in a state where you are not present, sort of like a sunken place. But it also is alluding to the whole crackdown on drugs during that time. I was alluding to that. So if you notice with all these contrafacts, it has a sort of humorous aspect, whereas it also has a serious aspect juxtaposed. So I was really trying to have every contrafact, I guess, chronologically allude to something.
How many were you able to record at the end?
6.
6, okay.
Yeah.
So the other 2, would you like to talk about it?
Okay. It's been so long. Oh my gosh, can I remember them? So it was these 2. It was How High and wow, I'm trying to remember what we're. And the other contrafact that I did was Standing Rock, which was contrafact of Cherokee, which is, of course, alluding to the Standing Rock situation and also alluding to identity, alluding to ancestral and Aboriginal identity as opposed to feeling like you're entitled. So that is one contrafact, and wow, what is the other? I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
But
That's fine.
I had a total of
6.
Yeah, 6
Wonderful.
contrafacts. But yeah.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Nzinga. Please clap for Nzinga.
Thank you. Yeah.